Brilliant. Well, I think we will crack on. For those of you that just joined, please be aware we are recording the session. We'll be able to share that afterwards. You are all muted, and that's just to enable the flow of the webinar. If you have any questions, please drop them into the live chat or the Q&A, and we'll get to those as we go through the session. I'll be basically hosting this, but introducing the apps as we go through. So without further ado, this webinar is about the finance apps of the future, which are basically 3 apps that we have selected that we think are market defining or pioneering in how they're approaching an area of the I guess, financial landscape that interacts with your financial system. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Ryan Piercy. I'm a director at Scrum Bland in both our business advisory and our systems advisory departments. I work with a lot of cloud-based applications and advise businesses, small, medium-sized businesses, on how to adopt these to improve their processes, mostly from an efficiency and automation and a business insights perspective. Now, today we are focusing on 3 apps. Those are Comma, Cresco, and Arex. Now, as a quick introduction, Comma and Cresco utilize open banking. If you've not heard about open banking, that's technology or basically an interface that was brought in for banks to open up their information in a secure way so that users could basically get more utilization out of their bank information. And we're starting to see apps come on the scene that actually really interact well with this facility. Comma does this from a payments perspective, so linking into your finance system and automating from a payment perspective. Cresco more so from a receivables side, so when you send out your invoice for payment, streamlining that flow. And then Arex from a financing perspective, so focusing on selective invoice discounting in a new way. I'm not going to go into any more depth on any of these specifically because I'm going to let the presenters do it themselves. So firstly, I'm going to hand over to you, Tom, if you don't mind, to talk about Comma.
All right, hello everyone. So I'm Tom, I'm the founder of Comma. Let me just share my screen. I can bring up some our presentation. Right, that's it. So today I am going to talk about open banking bulk payments and what that means and what that's all about. So as I said, I'm the founder of Comma. So we are a small team based in West London. And you can find out more about us on our website, which is usecomma.com. So firstly, just to quickly take you through our mission. So our mission is to remove the pain from payments. And what that really means for us is that we're trying to make something that is as simple and as straightforward as possible to get payments out of the way. Like, who actually likes paying stuff? Not many, I'm sure. Our aim really is to reduce the time it takes to pay anything. So let me just take you through the problem a little bit. So one of the reasons I started Comma was that I was working in a finance role and I was working with corporations. And the thing that I noticed was that corporations might have clunky software, but at least they have something to manage payments. As you get to smaller businesses, you find that the less and less they have. And if you look at the very smallest businesses, the ones that have 10 or fewer staff, almost all of those have no access to corporate banking. They're doing everything manually. So there's over, and when you add this up, there's out of the 6 million businesses in the UK, there's 5.7 million of them have less than 10 staff. And if you add up how much they're transferring, it's over £1 trillion a year in the UK alone. Around the world, this is actually $100 trillion is transferred manually by small businesses, like more than the entire world's GDP, which is insane. So hours-wise, that's hundreds of thousands, billions of hours, millions of hours wasted, and it costs the economy in time alone around about 1.3 billion, probably more. That's just in the time that it would take. And if you look at this, payments is something which should be outsourced to providers like accountants and bookkeepers. Small businesses have trusted bookkeeping to accountants for years and years, and at least 75% of them have an accountant. But when they try to outsource this or try to get someone else to help them with a task, then it's either too risky or too difficult, and mainly you're just moving the problem from one person to another. So let's look at the existing options that are out there to try and solve this. Well, you've got BACS. BACS is like the fax machine, the payments industry. It's the underlying technology of the entire banking system at the moment. But if you're trying to access banks directly to make bulk payments for salaries, for example, it's a very hard thing for a small business to do. It's hours with your managers, you have a credit facility, and often you need to be in business for a significant amount of time before you can get it. So you operate with BACS bureaus, such as ADP, for example, which is one of the world's biggest payroll providers. And it's costly, it's just like an old school system, and it's a difficult thing to set up. So most small businesses just avoid it altogether. There's the other option as well, which is you might notice there are some virtual account systems that are out there. So what this means is that you're setting up an intermediary bank account that the software can control in a better way than they can your normal bank. But to set these things up involves KYC checking, directed signatures, and sometimes you can't even get these set up for some businesses because of how they're structured. So they're great once you got them, but we kind of think that they are a pain and a hassle, it can be avoided. So of course, there's then the final option, which is actually adding your accountant or bookkeeper or service provider to your bank. And again, this is a hassle to set up, often involving paperwork, being added to bank mandates, and then essentially as an accountant, you've got this stack full of cards that you're holding kind of for all of your different different clients. And often, even though you tell clients to set up dual authorization, sometimes they can't, or they don't, or they won't. So you're kind of taking on quite a bit of extra risk here. And again, you're pretty much just moving the problem from one source to the other. So open banking bulk payments are really the answer to all of this. They are the replacement for old school methods of bulk payment. So API-driven payments really are the way forward. So they enable software to push multiple payments to your bank account at once. This eliminates all the entry of information that you'd normally need to enter manually into your bank interface or upload via spreadsheets and so on. It's accessible to most small business bank accounts. So even if in some cases the user may not have the normal spreadsheet upload or the ability to upload files to it at all, but open banking bulk payments works. Security-wise, it's extremely secure, uses bank level security. The user is redirected to the bank to go through the normal login process to get to it. And there's a single authentication to make multiple payments. But the beauty of it is that the client can use their existing account. There is no need to set up any other account at all. So if you have 100 clients as an accountant, then you can set up 100 people instantly. And because it involves no KYC checking, because the bank's already done that. They've already got the account. So let's just quickly look at the kind of flow of data here. So if you look at a data source, such as such as Xero or QuickBooks or Sage or payroll system, then you've got a data source for all your payment information. That is then flowing through a provider such as Comma. And we then can take that information, we can prepare kind of a list of payments that need to be made to the bank and connect the bank to send that to them. From there, once the payment is made, there's also some clever stuff you can do. So when the client triggers that payment, you can then, the instant they've done it. So you can then push information back to the accounting system after the payment's made. So you know exactly that, what's happened. We also do things, in fact, I'm not sure I mentioned this in the presentation, but there's some things you do on top of this. So in order for people to trust the system like Comma, we do things that a bank normally wouldn't do. We actually poll the payment all the way through to the end to ensure that it actually gets there. And if anything happens, like it's blocked or anything, we can tell, and we can then, through software, we can then make that notified inside the accounting system or back to the user. And it works. So Comma only started very recently. We started our first pilot program in March. And we were expecting really money to just kind of trickle through it while we were getting up and running. But very quickly, people started trusting us with salary payments and larger expenses. We hit £1 million just over a month ago. We've just hit £2 million. We're very quickly going to get to £1 million a week very shortly. We paid over 1,000 different payees, I should say, because there's a mixture of suppliers and salaried staff. And it's growing fast, at least 10% per week. Some weeks we've seen it grow at 20% per week. So that is really ramping up. And we're about to launch publicly, which will make these figures kind of seem insignificant in a few weeks' time. Let me take you through the state of play. So we've been pioneering this technology. Before we came along, these endpoints were not being hit at all. We found an API provider that could accelerate our speed to market called Yapily. And they were able to give us the endpoint access to get to the bulk payment APIs at the major banks, so Barclays, NatWest, Santander, HSBC. And we've had to work with these banks and Yapily across the last 6 months, because literally when we first hit these APIs, they didn't work very well, and they now work fantastically well, mainly through the work that we've been doing over the last 6 months. We also have direct partnerships with Xero and Sage. We're working on other partnerships at the moment, and to basically get data sources into Comma. So the idea is that we're looking to connect as many data sources as we can, so that when you come into Comma, you'll have anything that you ever need to pay. And we're also speak regularly to the Open Banking Committee, and we're involved in that, and they're very supportive of Comma. So where are we? So if you look at where open banking began, it started out back in around 2018, and the first APIs were implemented back then. Like you might remember just the whole journey that if you've been with Xero ever since like 2009, started out kind of with private APIs, and then kind of as we got on, we got transaction access through open banking back in 2018. And payments started to come out in the early part of last year. And almost everybody supported single payments, which were useful for e-commerce, for retail, for top-up accounts, etc. And at the end of 2020, we started to get these bulk payment APIs. So these are now, in effect, working for the CMA 9 banks, which is this group of banks which are, well, it's too long to explain, but essentially it's the big high street banks, which you all know. We can now do bulk payments domestically. We'll soon have single payments internationally, and we will have new stuff coming out at the end of the year, early next year, such as variable recurring payments, which are pretty much the replacement for direct debits. They'll start out with sweeping between accounts that you already have. So, for example, if you have a Barclays account, a Starling account, you'll be able to sweep from one to the other. But we believe this will kind of extend to accounts you own to accounts you don't, so suppliers and payees. Internationally, UK is well ahead of other regions. However, we do have some countries opening up bulk payments at the moment. Germany has opened up 2 banks for bulk payments. We then expect Spain, Italy, France to come on board. And the US has announced just recently that they'll adopt open banking as well. So open banking really is a wave that will go across the entire world. We believe that API-driven payments will replace everything. It will replace these old school methods of payment that we've been using for years, like direct debits and BACS payments and all this sort of stuff. And in each country, you have all these different versions as well, which makes it even tougher. So let's just, yeah. So that's us. So that's our website. I'll give you a quick kind of look at how it works. Let me just grab that up. So this is the sort of screen that you'll see in Comma. So once you connect your accounting system, it'll bring up, I'll just go through bills today, actually. It'll bring in a list of all of the bills that you need to pay. We'll click through a few of them. And we'll say, right, we'll go and pay these guys. And let's have a look. So once you've selected the bills to pay, it'll then create a payment run. So this payment run can be shared. you can share this with a client or share this within your team. So for example, if a junior is setting up payments ready to be paid, they can go in, they can set up the pay information. We have a whole thing around how we audit pay information as well. And there's lots more kind of coming around that. But essentially, you've got at this point everything that you would need to pay inside a bank. So the sort code, the account number, the reference, the amount, etc. So you've got everything there, but you're outside the bank. So we've connected Barclays. So if I go ahead and click pay, this will then bulk together all of these payments and it'll group together multiple invoices if you have them for one supplier. And let me just, oops, sorry. So it brings up a confirmation screen. So I can select the date that I'm going to pay this. It shows you what's happening to references, etc. And it's just giving you the kind of list of payments that will be made. When I click confirm payment, that will then take me through to Barclays, which I've selected in this case, as the bank that I will pay with. So let me just identify myself. So remember, open banking requires bank level security. So when you make a payment, it requires that you enter your login credentials. So in this case, I'm going to enter my PIN code. And that's an important part of it because without that, it means that you need some other form of security to authorize payments. So knowing that you need to go through your bank login process ensures that only people with bank access can make the payment. So you have any user on the account, but only people with bank access can make it. And when I click the login button, I can then bulk pay all of these. So it's basically pulled through all the information that I've pushed in, and it's pushed through the account details, the references, the amounts. It's saying kind of when it's going to be paid. When I click continue, that will then pay all those people at once. And that's why kind of bulk's important, because it means that, because you have that login security, it means that you can, set up a whole lot of things at once and pay them all at once. If we're relying on single payments, it means you have to log in for every single time. Fast on the mobile, reasonably fast on mobile, but certainly not as fast as doing a one hit to do everything. So this will then process the payments, and will then at the same time those are all paid. I can see money's just actually come through to one of the accounts I sent it to. It will then also mark as paid everything inside Xero, and it pushes payments back to Xero at the same time. So we can kind of take action as soon as the user makes those payments. That's really how it works, and we think that it's very much the future of how things will be paid in the next few years. So
Cool.
if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. You can contact me at tom@usecomma.com or just through our website, usecomma.com. And that's it.
Cool. Thank you very much, Tom. So I think it's fair to say that Comma's pretty early on in that journey, and what you're doing is pretty pioneering. So I mean, I was lucky enough to kind of come across you and your service very early on. I know that you are slowly rolling out banks. You're kind of testing them and you're pushing through. What I think you listed them earlier, but can you just refresh what are the banks that your system's currently kind of flying with at the moment?
Yeah, so Barclays, HSBC, NatWest, and Santander. Lloyds, we hopefully will have ready soon, but we can do single payments through Lloyds. We can do single payments through every other bank, through Monzo, through Revolut, through Starling, etc. But more banks are opening this up. We're hoping to have Starling ready fairly soon, and we think that'll start to be kind of a real game changer with this when the challenger banks get on board.
Yeah, no, and from following, I guess, the trail of open banking, there's a lot that you're having to push the banks through, as you mentioned earlier, because they brought in this technology, the API connections, but without people using it, they had no way of debugging it and working out what was going wrong or not. So this is a process, and it's an evolving process. But if I compare this to what's out there at the moment, so when Xero launched an integrated payment system, probably 2 to 3 years ago now, with TransferWise, there was a lot of buzz about that because everyone thought, oh, brilliant, now I can make payments directly from my system. But actually, in practice, it became quite clumsy because you use this interim bank and you had to do a manual transfer with certain reference numbers paying a certain amount from your bank across into this interim bank to trigger that payment. And it just didn't, there was no flow to it. So although we presented on this quite a while ago now at Scrum Planned, there's been little uptake. Now we use Wise, we are looking at Comma as something to potentially use longer term. But as Tom said, I think this is where everything is heading. Everything is heading to API connected payments. And I know bulk payments are slightly different to batch payments. So generally in Xero, you create a batch file, you then put that batch file up into your bank. Bulk payments work by selecting multiple transactions and pushing that up. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Tom.
No,
pushing
right.
pushing that up a single kind of lines, but as a group, and then it pulls that information back through. The bit I love with Comma is how seamless that works with what you've got in Xero, and as that security and that that kind of restriction levels regarding who can do what come through, I see that making it better each time on an iterative basis. The other bit I just wanted to touch on there is, I know Tom went through and manually put in PIN codes, etc. I believe if you share that to someone and they access it via their mobile phone, for example, then that can be an authorization via biometrics. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, that works really well with NatWest in particular. They have a great mobile experience for doing bulk payments, and yeah, so you can use biometric login. In fact, just in the last week or so, HSBC's finally got rid of their little calculator thing to use biometric login on your app, so you can do that as well, even on desktop. But the team at HSBC is great. They're a little bit behind initially, but they really have an amazing product team there, and their product's coming along really well.
Brilliant, thanks, Tom. And so, moving from one open banking system onto another, I'm going to introduce Ralph from Cresco, which focuses more on the receipt side. Ralph, are you able to share your screen for us?
Yeah, hi guys. There's huge amounts of building work going on outside, so I don't know if you can hear that, but
no, I think we're good.
I definitely can. All right, give me a second. All right. Can you see that?
Yep, all good.
Right, so Comma is a accounts payable solution that allows you to probably pay your suppliers or your employees in a single solution. Cresco is a accounts receivable solution. So when you send out invoices to people and you want to get paid, it allows them to pay you more conveniently online and for free. So we don't charge a cent for processing these payments. This sits us very much next door to companies like Stripe and PayPal in order for online payments. So one of the things that we did here at Cresco is, before this, I had a online business company or online lending company, and I recognized how difficult it was for business owners to use multiple tools. So it was very important that we built our integration as seamlessly as possible into Xero, so business owners don't need to understand or learn new tricks. So what this means is, once you've integrated with us, and I'll show you how you can integrate later, everything is done through Xero. So right now, this is the Xero dashboard. If you were to send an invoice from Xero, it can still get paid by us. So I'm just creating a demo invoice here. This is, if you used Xero before, this will be very familiar with you. Then one approves the invoice. Typical scenarios that you would email it to your supplier. In this case, I'm going to jump straight to the end, and we're just going to open up the invoice completely. The entire UI here still belongs to Xero. It's not, it wouldn't be unfamiliar to your typical suppliers or recipients. The invoice information is here. I've put demo. All the bank account numbers are there. So if they want to pay it through the typical accounts payable solution, they can. But it provides them with the auxiliary additional option to pay via open banking, which is using the exact same technology as Comma. So somebody clicks on the invoice, Cresco, having integrated with Xero, will pull that invoice information, such as the amount, which in this case is 1.20, the invoice reference number, and then once you create an account with us at the beginning, we know securely where the money is going to go. So this does protect from invoice fraud, push payment fraud, and assures that there's no fat finger errors when people pay you. They're happy to pay the invoice. They confirm, very much like Comma, you can select your banks. In this case, we'll do Revolut. Now, Cresco, via the same APIs as Comma, is talking to Revolut and telling them the bank account information and this invoice information. You can either scan the QR code now, which is a much more seamless process because of the two-factor authentication that was mentioned earlier, which is the biometric approvals. But for this demo, I'm going to continue on the desktop. And so now Revolut's just send me a quick message asking me to confirm this payment. And here we have all the payment information that was pre-populated from the Xero invoice, who we're paying, how much we're paying. So we authorize that information. And unlike a card payment, the payer hasn't had to enter in the 16-digit account number, the CVC number, their name or their address. So there's been no online sharing of sensitive payment information. They've simply been redirected to the bank where we've told the bank, this is who you need to pay. Now they can enter in their email for a receipt as a form of authentication that this payment has been paid. So they submit the receipt, which would not be the case if you were to manually pay things. Does provide confidence. I'm biased, but let's say we'll give it 5-star. And then as the payer, your supplier, when they go back to the invoice will be securely marked here as paid, amount due, nothing. So they know that this invoice has been paid, or maybe it hasn't been paid and therefore they need to pay it and to get on with it. As the payee, as the business that owns, what you'll see is when you go back into Xero and you check out invoices, this is the invoice that we've already here marked as paid. So it's very clear that there's no longer anything due. It's 0.0. If we go to history, you'll see that I created the invoice at 9:55, approved at 9:55, viewed, and it was paid at 9:58. And the key solution there is it very much helps with reconciliation, notification, security, and those payments are settled instantly. So unlike PayPal or Stripe that will charge 2-3%, which can hurt your margins, especially if you're a low margin business, but they will also take 4 or 5 days to settle. This money is in the account. So both the payer and the payee have been notified that the payment has been processed, and your bank account will also show likewise. Now, in order to connect to Cresco, you can go either through the Xero app market store. So if you were to type in payments, this is us here. You click on this and you can sign in via Xero. And the only thing that we really do is sort of one-time sign in that allows us to authenticate your bank details. That's the name of your company, your account number, your sort code, to assure that each invoice is sent to the right bank account. And that protects against invoice fraud. So let's say we sign in using the Xero login details. Here you'll be redirected into Cresco, where you will need to, I've already got one bank connected, but you'll need to add a new bank. You connect to this, whichever bank it is, and a little bit like what we went through earlier, where we redirect you to the bank account. In this case, Cresco is both a payment initiation provider and an account information provider. And as an account information provider, we will pull that account data, so your name and the account number and the sort code, in order to assure that the fund always arrive in the right account. And then you can go back to Xero and carry on using Xero as per normal, allowing your customers with this sort of increased convenience to pay you online. If you don't want to sign in via the Xero dashboard, it's very easy to sign in from Cresco.com. And then you can even, if you wanted to, you could create your own payment links within this and send it via SMS or email or whatever method that you preferred. But for us, it's very important that payments are seamlessly integrated with Xero, because that just helps from a time reconciliation perspective. And it's the same open banking technology as Comma. It's sort of API driven, and just it's we believe, just like Tom, that this will be growing internationally, and every year the sort of products and features will be getting bigger and bigger and wider distributed.
Thank you very much, Ralph. I do love your presentations because it shows how simple the solution is, how simply effective it is. So anyone on the webinar, if you're not using payment links, it's proven that those embedded invoices help speed up your recovery of I guess, or improve your cash flow. So that's something to look at. But the key thing and what I love about Cresco is, unlike the likes of Stripe, etc., which are taking that margin, it's free. You are getting this for free. And the main reason that Cresco are able to do this is because, unlike the payment providers, which is a system that sits in the middle, they're having to pay charges to run. Using open banking is free. So the technology has been built, it's using a free connection. And so there's no reason not to have this embedded in your system. Even if you're not going to use it for all invoices, having the ability to turn it on or off to send invoices out from Xero is definitely worth exploring Cresco. Now, if you use separate systems to send your invoices, that's something that we might need to explore and help you in establish a good way of setting this out. But something I did want to ask you, Ralph, is I know that you had a long list of banks that were shown on the screen there. Is there any banks big banks in the UK you don't work with, or is it the whole suite at the moment?
The only bank we don't work with is Metro, and nobody works with Metro.
Is that just a rule?
No, that's because they've got enough problems with their share price right now.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool. And so from the integration point of view, you're obviously integrating to Xero. Do you integrate with other solutions at the moment?
Yes, we integrate with QuickBooks as well. It's the same process. It's a very tight integration where it's a one-time redirection, and then everything else is done within QuickBooks. So the key thing is, as a sort of business owner, you really don't need to learn a new tool or have a new app. And then there are other, QuickFile is another accounting software solution that we integrate with, and a few others.
Cool. Thank you very much, Ralph. I'm aware that we've got some questions coming in, but I'll pick them up at the end. If I can now kind of hand over to Jeff to talk in more detail about Eric's. You all right sharing your screen, Jeff? Thanks, it's working brilliantly. You just need to unmute yourself and you're good to go.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being on the session today. My name is Jeff Thompson, working for Arix Markets. I think we've seen from Tom and Ralph earlier this morning that they're providing solutions for making payments and receiving payments using technology to make it much easier. Arix, what we're trying to do is to really kind of think about the way that financing for SMEs is made, and to think about that as a first resort. So when sometimes getting paid on time isn't quick enough, and how you are then able to have effectively payment terms of 0 and to reduce your debtor days. So think about today how you would feel about having to actually have cash into your businesses effectively on the same day to help you to grow with cash flow. So when we think about financing and factoring, for you guys as small business owners, there is a real kind of a connotation around this, that it's an evil solution that you're tied into, and that it's really not designed to allow small business owners to have access to capital as they need it. It's structured with loads of different layers. There are, whether you're going to a broker, to your bank, or an online provider, there are always all these different layers in there with commissions and everything. And it's all been designed with the banks or the investors in mind to make more profits. At Arex, we're trying to completely change the thinking around financing to be enabling SMEs access to capital at the cheapest possible prices. And the way out, and I'll explain how it works in a few moments, but it's all aimed at driving the cost down to the SME. The reason for that, if we think about that, the way that financing everything in the UK at the moment is effectively the system is broken. What you have is the easiest thing is you go in and you'll be able to get access to a bank overdraft, and banks will happily give you a small overdraft. But when you're trying to grow your businesses, then an overdraft isn't the right facility. So what they will then happen to do to you is they'll put you into some kind of financing or factoring facility, but it comes with all of these different tie-in clauses, and they will take over your debtor book. And the whole thing is around how they can then control you, and by putting you into restrictive clauses, you're unable to get out of this situation. The other thing that they do is they will then ask you for some form of collateral, whether that's assets of the business, or even then down to, because of the way SMEs work nowadays, tends to be that people aren't purchasing or making outright purchases in the same way. They're leasing buildings, machinery, yeah, all those kind of things. So you don't have those assets in the business, and therefore they then require personal guarantees, which again is a real difficulty for you as business owners. So we're talking about how we can then remove those pains from you by not asking for any kind of guarantee, whether that's on your business or from a personal guarantee point of view, because we actually, as our customer, we actually do our scoring against your clients, the debtor. So we're actually looking at changing the way that this works, so that this is actually a cash flow management solution with a financing tool that's working on it, which means that when you need to raise growth, or if you've got a short-term cash flow issue, you can easily share and sell your assets, which you have, which are your invoices. So the services that you're providing or the goods that you're selling can be sold quickly and easily through a market exchange, which allows you to get the cash into your business on the same day, which gives you that complete control over liquidity. So we're talking about taking the average debtor days for SMEs of £1 million turnover around 71 days. So all of you on here will probably have some experience where you've had late payments, and what happens in that situation? Your customers aren't paying you, so therefore do you then not pay your suppliers on time, and it just makes the whole cycle even worse, and therefore it kind of makes this misery of payments that we've got a late payment problem in the UK much worse. Or potentially you could be at risk because you're still trying to pay your suppliers, but your customers aren't paying, so you've got a real cash flow issue. And this is where Arex is there to help you to be able to raise the cash you need either to grow or to again stave off those issues, but effectively in a way where you have complete control over the liquidity. So when we think about how Arex works, so our initial partnership we launched last week at the Digital Accountancy Show. So it's very new to the UK market. We're working with a few accounting firms right now and their clients. Obviously, Scott & Bland, one of the early adopters that we've been working with. And again, very similarly to the way that Cresco works, in that we've built the integration into Xero, but for you as users, if you need to access the Arex system, you just do everything through your Xero application. And I'll touch on that in a moment and just give you a very quick demo. So on the left-hand side, you as the issuer of the invoice, you raise your invoices exactly as you would in Xero. It comes through the Xero APIs. We then have a scoring. We use Credit Safe to actually credit score your debtor. We don't leave any kind of credit checks or footprints on the debtors, and we don't do any scoring against you as the issuer at all. That then gives us the the scoring and the pricing, where it then goes, and this is the bit where I think where I'm saying where it's a bit different to traditional factoring solutions or financing solutions, is that we have a whole, that the Arex platform is a marketplace for institutional investors to be able to then buy invoices. The beauty of this is kind of twofold. So first of all, we're not tied to a single player, but it means that they're buying them on a auction-based bid, and the lowest price wins, which means that it's driving the cost of the financing down to you as the SME all of the time. The other thing is that because the investors only buy part portions of each invoice, the risk is shared, but it also means that the investors aren't able to drive that price up. So normally, if you're going to a bank or into a traditional solution, because it's a single fund, that means the price is determined by the people that are actually giving you the cash. With us, because unlike other products, we don't have one single investor, and we're not a bank, the marketplace and the bidding drives the rates down to give you guys the cheapest possible finance. Now, I mentioned in the first slide, one of the things about the layers, and so some with commissions and various things that are sold. So as clients of Scrut and Bland, we have a commission or revenue sharing system, and Scrut and Bland have completely waived that. And rather than just not taking the commission, we have actually given Scrut and Bland even better pricing, so we can pass the savings directly onto their customers, which is obviously a great thing for you as customers, but also shows how Scrut and Bland are looking after their clients in every single step of the way, not just on the work they do for them, but by also thinking about how they can get them a better deal through financing solutions as well. So we operate mainly through accountants, because SMEs now recognise that the accountant is probably best placed to offer them advice. So previously, you may have thought about going to a broker, or obviously you would go to your bank manager, as I say, and they'll probably put you into an overdraft very easily, but then try and change, effectively move the goalposts and change the level of this. If you go to your accountant, they are the best people that can advise you. You've probably had advice from the guys at Scrut and Bland over the last 18 months with government-backed lending. So there've been things like CBILS and the bounce-back loans, all those kind of things, which has helped SMEs to understand that accountants are really best placed to help their clients for all aspects of things, and including financing and funding. So as we move now to the point where the government loans are now they're stopped, and also we're at the point where we're having to repay, a lot of businesses are now having that pinch around cash flow. So again, with Scrut and Bland, Arex are here to help you to be able to access that cash to grow your business as and when you need it. So to kind of cap off, really, our mission is very much to drive the interest rates down and drive impact up for small businesses, to enable you to grow, invest, and establish your businesses as we come through out of the pandemic, to give you the security and the cash flow required to help your business to grow. If we think about the old way, access to cash, so being able to get cash in the bank in the same day was very expensive. You can go online, but you're looking at kind of ridiculous kind of APRs. Probably even worse than that was that the traditional way, if you go to a different facility, comes with lock-in clauses, restrictive access, and they own the debtor book. With us, the real beauty of this is it's any size invoice. There's no guarantees of any sort. And probably the most appealing thing to you as SMEs is there are no rigid rolling contracts. So you are free to use Arex as and when you choose to. You can use it for a one-off invoice, it's completely ad hoc. You could use it for one of your debtors for all of their invoices, or you can kind of entirely choose as and when you want to use it to get cash flow. So it really is that simple to allow you to, as I say, to grow your business through being able to have access to cash as and when you need it. I'll just quickly drop into Xero. So one of the things, there are a couple of things that we need to do. Just log me out. first of all, when we come in, and we've worked with Scott and Bland on this, so within your settings, you'll need to go in and just create a new invoice setting, a branding theme, as they call it in. So within here, you create a new custom branding theme. We've called it RX. Here you can upload your template. On this, it just has our bank details on it, but you can have your, obviously you have your logos, and so it's still your invoice so that people understand it's coming from you. Once you've done that, when you come into your actual customers, there's only a couple things else you have to do. So if I click into my customer and I just quickly edit, in the account number, you need to, so this is the debtor, so your customer, you need to enter their company registration number, company's house. So you put that information into the account number. Once that's done, again, as a, by choice, if you wanted to sell all of your invoices to RX on this particular debtor, you can just change the default theme here to RX invoice. And I can't get to the save button because my bar's in the way. Quickly save on that. And that's the setup done. Obviously, we go through the integration, but then when we come to raise an invoice, this is where you'll be completely familiar with the way that you're already working within Xero. So we come in here, we raise our invoice, the reference, picks up the invoice number, our issue date, the due date, and we can see here it's already got the branding theme set to RX. We put in the actual items for the invoice, and when we click on send, when we've then sent that, because of the integration that we've got within from RX within the Xero marketplace, very similar to the way that Ralph described, you just go onto the marketplace in Xero and connect on the finance options, click on onto RX and just make the connection. Once we've done that, then every time that an invoice hits with an RX invoice theme, it's automatically pulled into our system. It's passed on to the investors where it's sold, and the cash is then paid back into your account. And on the first time you do it, it'll probably be within 24 hours. But then once you've been using the system over a period of time, you'll get the cash into your account in less than 2 hours. And it's really that simple. So it enables you to continue raising invoices as you would normally within Xero without any changes at all. Once you've made that one-time integration, that's all you have to do, and you have access to cash flow as and when you need it, taking those debtor days down back to Xero. Thank you very much, and that's everything, right?
Cool, thank you very much, Jeff. No, I'm really interested in RX. I think the entire approach to invoice financing, or I guess a method of financing, and the way RX have taken that is really interesting. I mean, there's no secret in the fact that invoice discounting has got a bad rep, especially in the UK, and generally that's always been because once you're kind of in, it's very hard to escape, and there's lots of hidden charges, and so you kind of feel that you're not getting a good deal, but you can't ever get out of it. Now, going back a few years with the likes of Xero and other cloud-based technology and the APIs, you had then a selective invoice discounting platforms that would come out and enable you to select certain invoices that would flow through into systems, but you'd still have to go directly to a bank, and so you would still be charged quite a high rate. The way RX working is, as you explained, Jeff, is you're putting it out to the marketplace, so you are getting the best possible rate because people are bidding on it. Yeah. So I think the fact that you aren't a lender and you're actually just a platform that enables that link between people that need finance and people that are, can provide cash injection, I think is really good. I know. A way of doing that is that don't you break down individual invoices into segments so that there's kind of a risk profile that's kind of managed as well? Is that right?
Yeah, so what happens when we don't allow an investor to buy the whole 100% of an invoice? So as I say, it gets effectively, they bid on parts of it to be able to, as you say, that then splits, it mitigates the risk for the investors because obviously they can't then actually just own the whole invoice, so they're not at risk themselves, but it also reduces the concentration of risk, and therefore the ability when the investor then would say, well, we've got all of the concentration of your fund, and therefore we want to raise the prices. So that's the whole idea is around that effective chunking of the invoice to protect the investors in one way, but also protect us from the investors being able to say, well, we control your whole fund, and therefore we want to raise pricing, and that's against the ethos. So effectively, if you think about, as I think one of the guys mentioned earlier, with when you're dealing with corporates and corporations, that the access they have to cash is incredibly easy at the cheapest rates. They can issue new bonds, they have access to the stock exchange. We've effectively tried to take that same methodology into the SME space to allow SMEs that same access to capital at the cheapest rates that's available within corporates, because as we've already seen, banks are closing down, they're putting you to the wrong facility. And as you just said there, Ryan, once you're in, you're pretty much locked in, and it was the right facility at the right time, but then you just can't get out of these things. And whereas for us, you have that ability to use when you need to. And if you want to use it any longer, you just stop.
Yeah, I think that's really great in the fact that because there are no ongoing charges, you could literally sign up for Arix, have it sat in the background, and if you need, an injection of cash at any point, you can put out an invoice under an Arix banner and get that injection of cash immediately. So it's there when you need it. You're not tied in for a long period of time. I think that's a great option. So no, thank you very much, Jeff. I also just want to mention is Arix product is not new. It's new to the UK. It's just launched in the UK, but it's been around in Scandinavia for a while. But the brilliant approach that I feel Arix have taken is that coming over to the UK, they appreciate it's a new market, it's a new way of working, and they have reached out for feedback and advice in development. And we've been trying to help from our side and our expertise, but I know there are other accountants dotted around the UK that have been assisting as well. Now we've had a couple of questions come in, and I think I'm going to touch on them. If anyone else has got any other questions, please ping them in. But let me just run through some that have been asked. Thank you, Peter, because I think you've probably been the most active in asking questions. So I'll just pick up a couple that you've put in here. So first, you referenced Comma. You've asked if it could interact with other software packages. Specifically, you've asked if it could interact with Iris Payroll and KeyPrime. Now, if I just jump in before Tom, I'll bring you in a second, Tom, and just talk about your answer you put in there. Now, I guess the main reason most of these products interact with Xero first is it's first cloud-based. It's a lot easier to get into it, and it's got a very secure and easy to understand API. So generally, most innovation, most pioneering technology interacts or integrates with Xero first. Then they open into other areas, mostly the other cloud-based operation systems such as QuickBooks, Sage Business Cloud. Generally, they're the next two you go to. But I believe Comma also looking into other areas. Do you want to touch on that as well, Tom?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, exactly right. So essentially start with the easy ones. So we start with Xero, QuickBooks, and Sage. That gives you a big chunk of the market from the accounting data side. Now, payroll is a very different beast. Most of these systems don't have good APIs at all. Like Xero has one, but if you look at like Sage, it doesn't. And it's a very, very fragmented market. There's a lot more payroll systems out there than there are accounting systems, which is baffling, but it's true. There's two ways that we handle it. The very first thing we did back when we were piloting is we enabled Spreadsheet Import. So a lot of these systems, you can export a spreadsheet of all the payee data, and then we can import it in. And then we have lots of people paying salaries like that at the moment. However, beyond that, we're also talking directly to payroll systems about an integration. And they may look a little bit different than how Comma is now, but it will enable kind of bulk payment to be connected directly into some of these systems, potentially. So it's still early days for us, but yeah, we're talking to a lot of payroll systems right now who are interested in how they can solve this problem. Like for years, they've relied on, they know this problem exists. Like if you're a small business, you can't import BACS files. You don't have BACS. So, and even spreadsheet import, you don't have. So how do people pay? Often they are literally downloading the pay slips and copying one by one into their online banking systems to pay it. Or even if they have a template inside their online banking, they're still copy pasting to make it right. So is it something that they want to solve as well? Payroll systems are very keen to solve this problem. And some have attempted doing virtual accounts. If you look at some of the new ones, like Pento, for example, which is using a virtual account in between. Very nice system, but again, you need this other account which you've got to top up, and you've got to manage, and you've got to account for. So it's and you've got to open. So it's one of these things that they want to avoid as well. So yeah, we're talking to payroll systems quite a lot. We've found it's a very big area for to get into, but right now you can import a spreadsheet today, and usually it works.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. And I think that's a good point, that you can still do that import functionality. From my perspective, I always try and avoid that, because whenever you've got that break and you've got a manual process, one, you've got risk of things going wrong, but you've also got the ability for someone to manipulate the data. You want to lock that down as much as possible. Now, touching Peter on the systems you mentioned, which is Iris Payroll and KeyPrime. Generally, historically, they are desktop or server-based systems, and so they're not built to interact with other products in the same way. So it's more likely that the likes of Comma, Cresco, Arix, they're going to build into native cloud-based products. Now, I believe KeyPrime have recently launched, and by recently, I think 2 weeks ago, launched a native cloud-based product. I've not looked into that yet, but that's something that I can explore and get back to you on. But really, if you want to make use of these products, you may need to explore other tools such as Xero, so cloud-native based tools. Now, I know, Peter, you also asked about Cresco and utilizing online banking platforms, i.e. you use Stripe, or an online banking platform, and you're asking, can Cresco help replace Stripe in this area, rather than just being an interaction tool through Xero? Ralph, could I bring you in just to comment on that?
Sure. Cresco is designed very much like Stripe, but Stripe runs on Visa, MasterCard rails. But to be quite frank, I copy them at every available opportunity. Stripe is integrated into these platforms. So they've had somebody that's sold into this platform that has decided to integrate with Stripe instead of Adyen or WorldPay. It's our job now to go up to the same platforms and say, hey, you need to use this auxiliary payment solution. But chances are Stripe at $100 billion valuation is in a lot more platforms than we are. So if you know the platform, I'm happy to sort of reach out to them and encourage them to use us. But I doubt it.
Well, it makes sense. It's early days. You build into what's easy to build into before you expand. Stripe wouldn't have been in all of those places when they first formed. They've just been around a lot longer. But definitely, once again, something that we can come back on. And then we've had a final question regarding Arix, and specifically asking, does it work outside of just Xero? My understanding is at present, it only works for an integration with Xero. My guess, and I'll bring you into comment if you don't mind, Jeff, but my guess is you'll probably build into the other cloud-based platforms such as QuickBooks and Sage Business Cloud first before going to other systems. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely right, Ryan. So at the moment, it's the automated platform is built into Xero, and we're investigating, obviously, being able to then move exactly the same to Sage Accounting and to QBO and other cloud providers. But we're also investigating, there's some kind of middleware software available that we might be able to kind of piggyback onto, which would then offer us into some of the larger ERP solutions as well. So we're trying, obviously, as with the other guys, we started with Xero because their APIs are the most open and the easiest and probably the most commonly used for SMEs in the UK at the moment. But we will look to explore, obviously, as we expand into the UK to pretty much cover the whole of the landscape. But again, potentially in some of the other territories, they will do a manual import. It's a lot less, or it's a lot more cumbersome. It's a bit more of a process. But we have to look at that on a case-by-case basis, without trying to be too negative about it. Because it's a lot of manual input, it tends to be for larger facilities or for businesses that are looking to raise larger amounts of cash rather than just a very small amount. Because obviously, it does take a lot longer when you have to do things on a manual input.
No, I completely understand. All of this is about automation, making this as efficient as possible. And I know it's something we didn't actually dive into too much on the RX side, because we're talking more about principles. But the level of automation that you've brought is that, as you demonstrated, you can't just add an invoice template and Arix does the rest. and without that integration into systems, you're not going to be able to do that. So I think there's no other questions that have come in, so I'm going to draw this to a close. I want to thank everyone for attending and hopefully getting a lot out of this session. I want to thank all of the presenters, and I believe, Tom, was that a quick question that you had or comment?
Sorry, no, I thought I had the emoji thing, but no. I didn't have a quick question, no.
No, so I just want to thank
you
you.
Emojis, but no.
So thank you all for joining and obviously sharing. If anyone wants any more information on any of the systems, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to either make a direct introduction, or if I know the answer, reply directly. My email address is ryan.piercy@scruttonbland.co.uk. So that's ryan.pearcy@scruttonbland.co.uk. Thank you once again, and we'll bring this webinar to a close.